So comic collecting can be really fun, and there's multiple formats, and we talked about that, but time to get into some pet peeves. Let's get into a little thing that bugs me sometimes. Sometimes you can be having a nice set of consistent, standard-size hardcovers for an ongoing series of books in the same universe, and then for some reason the last one is a paperback only. That's what we're talking about today.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and on today's video we're talking about comic book inconsistencies. And I'm not going to talk about spine design, because that could be its own video. And I'm once again doing a broad overview, not a complete talk like let's go for every single example of this. But something that happens in comics too frequently with collections is that they'll start in one format and then switch to another at some point. A lot of my examples are going to be kind of like this one is the big one, the Milestone universe. We'll talk about it. I'll explain it. And then there's some others I have that I don't have, but I have other formats of. There's just a few different examples of these I wanted to bring up, but I want you to contribute your own in the comments section down below. Let me know which collections are inconsistent and bug you. I'll give some examples of what I don't mean as well. But this is going to be a surprisingly DC-focused video, which I think is appropriate since the last comic video on Event Omnibuses was more Marvel-focused. So, we're going to be dragging a little bit here. Once again, I'll say up front, I am not a comic book editor. I am not a collected editions editor. I know there are logistics behind all these decisions, and I do understand them. But as a reader and a collector, these are the things that bug me. So let's talk about it. And like I said, we'll talk about an example without it doesn't qualify before we get into the examples of what does qualify for the topic. So if you enjoy this type of video, be sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss out on future comic book videos, because there will certainly be more very soon. All right, let's begin talking about this inconsistency. So like I said, we need to establish a boundary of what the topic is, and that is that falling paperback. So first things first, when I'm talking an inconsistency, I am not talking about something like this. BPRD Hell on Earth was originally released in 5 hardcover editions before the paperbacks came later. Now, when I got into collecting the BPRD volumes, the first 3 hardcovers were out of print. They were very expensive. I didn't want to spend the money on the hardcovers. The paperbacks that are in print, those are the ones I got instead, but I did have 4 and 5 in hardcover because they were still available, so I thought, why not? This is an inconsistency not brought on by a publisher, but by me, myself, and my collecting habit. So we're not going to be talking about that. We're also not going to be talking about stuff that doesn't appear in certain formats. So, for example, there may be a modern comic series that's not an Epic collection. There may be a classic DC series not in DC Finest. They may have something that never made it to an omnibus. Not going to talk about stuff like that. I'm going to talk about when they start a series and then switch formats mid-series or leave some format options out as we go forward. That's going to be today's topic. All right, let's start with an easy one. Superman 78, which was a miniseries that takes place in the original Christopher Reeve Superman movie universe. You've got your art looks like the actors. This one involves Brainiac. I believe this kind of ignores Superman 3 and 4 and just kind of goes off of where 2 left off. And so we got Brainiac in that universe, which is really cool. Now, this is a big deal, and that was released in a standard size hardcover on its initial printing, and then later printings were paperback. So it was kind of nice. It's like, oh, if you get the initial release, hey, you can get a cool hardcover. It's a big deal. Now, when the sequel series, Superman 78, The Metal Curtain, came out, they released it only in trade paperback. It came straight to trade paperback. There was no hardcover edition. And, the spines line up well enough, but yeah, kind of a bummer that it downgraded. Now, this could be a case of, the hardcover sales weren't as strong for Superman 78, and so they, or the sales of the single issues for Metal Curtain weren't super strong, and so they decided to downgrade it. Maybe Metallo is just less of an interesting of a villain than Brainiac, but they decided to downgrade. And that could be a thing. Maybe they're like, oh, we're not going to do as many standard-size hardcovers. Well, let me ask this question. Batman 89, that got a full-size hardcover, or a standard-size hardcover. And then Batman 89 Echoes is coming out straight to hardcover. So Batman gets the treatment, but Superman, it's a paperback only for its second miniseries. Kind of a bummer, especially because the Batman 89 series takes so long to come out. Superman Metal Curtain finished its single issue run and it put out its trade paperback, and was all complete. Like, it made all the way to trade, I think, like 8 months before 89 Echoes ended, and they started on the same day. So it's kind of insane sometimes, the delays. But yeah, Batman 89 Echoes, that's getting a hardcover to match the Batman 89 hardcover, but Metal Curtain didn't get it, which is a bummer, because that means when you got it on your shelf, especially if you're doing like chronologically, yeah, you got, that going on, and you don't have a hardcover option. That's a bummer. I mean, it's plain and simple, that kind of sucks. So then let's talk about Marvel, because they're also sort of guilty of this, but this is an example of a strategy cross-company that is changing, something across the company, not just on individual titles. So Marvel, typically, for a long time, were doing these deluxe hardcovers. So this is Avengers, the Jason Aaron run, Volume 1, and this contains issues 1 through 12. It's essentially the equivalent of 2 trade paperbacks, but it's in an oversized deluxe hardcover. And they did this for many series. And so for Avengers in particular, there's Volume 1, we got a Volume 2, and then a Volume 3, and you can see they got a little shorter, a little smaller. But then by the time Volume 4 came around, they started thickening up a little bit, with Volume 5 being, honestly the same thickness as some omnibuses I have. And so it was like, okay, well, there it is. And then what about the Avengers Forever series by Jason Aaron? What about the Avengers Assemble crossover? Because seemingly that could be one hardcover for Avengers Forever and one hardcover for Avengers Assemble. Well, Marvel opted to go Omnibus. So it's the Avengers Forever Omnibus that contains all of Avengers Forever and Avengers Assemble, which you can see is not honestly that much thicker than the Avengers hardcover. And the Avengers was $60 for Avengers Volume 5, and the Omnibus was $100 because it's got the Omnibus tag on it. So it's kind of interesting. These other ones were $45. So, yeah, for this at least, they did finish in oversized hardcover, the complete thing, and it was a clean break. There's not duplicate issues from this Avengers Forever in this Avengers. Not so much the case for Daredevil in the, I think it's called To Hell and Back hardcovers or something like that. There was the Chip Zdarsky run. They never finished those oversized hardcovers and instead just went, oh, you can get the Chip Zdarsky Omnibus, and people who had collected the oversized hardcovers were like, well, there's no clean breaks, and I got to rebuy everything. That is a poor example of doing this. This is not as bad, and they did this as well with Wolverine and X-Force for the Krakoa era. And there was, I think for X-Force, they finished the hardcovers. For Wolverine, they did a Sabretooth War omnibus that kind of contained the last part of Wolverine, kind of similar to the Avengers. But this is also, this is really caused by Marvel stopping the deluxe hardcovers. They don't do these anymore. They're just doing like omnibuses now. And it's partially because a lot of the Marvel Comics run these days are not very long. So having to have lengthy hardcovers isn't really that beneficial when they're just going to slap out an omnibus pretty quick now. So yeah, at least consistency-wise, it's mostly consistent. And there is everything in the same format. But it is something that did annoy many collectors when Marvel started doing that. Alright, here's one that doesn't personally affect me, but I find odd, and I think it's a cool example. So the Batman White Knight series, there's been several of them. This is a Elseworld series, or in the DC Black label, the Mature Readers label. Series I quite enjoy. Sean Murphy is the guy on these doing the writing, and a lot of the art as well. But the Batman White Knight miniseries, the first one was one of the, I think, standout Black Label books for being, like, really good. I really liked it, and I do like this universe. And so they released it in standard hardcover to begin with, and then they later released a paperback, and then later a deluxe oversized hardcover, which is pretty cool. And that came with some, like, additional bonus material, because this is pretty much just the main series with some covers and a little bit of extras in the back, but not too much. So the deluxe edition came with a little bit more. And so they did standard hardcover, then paperback, then deluxe edition. Now they're doing an absolute edition that even comes with a black and white copy of the book, which I probably will pick up because I don't own any absolute editions currently, but I do like this series a lot. So that was kind of how they did that. And then so for Batman Curse of the White Knight, they once again did the standard hardcover. And then this is actually a special edition. I think this is a Barnes & Noble exclusive, which came with this art print. That was cool. Anyways, they did the standard hardcover, then they did the trade paperback, and then later on did a deluxe edition. So that was kind of seeming like the format. Like if you were going to go for the deluxe editions on White Knight, you just wait for the deluxe. And so it took a little bit longer to get the deluxe, but it did it. This also included what is this? This is the, oh, this is actually a special cover for the Barnes & Noble edition as well. This one also contained the Victor Von Fries one-shot, so that was cool as well. So that was the kind of format. Then they released a spin-off, which was Batman White Knight Presents Harley Quinn. This one was by Katana Collins with some work by Sean Murphy, but it was, a spin-off. It was a side story with Harley. It takes place after Curse of the White Knight. So, it's kind of an important chapter, I think, as well. And then this one got a hardcover, a paperback, and then no deluxe edition. So maybe the thought was, well, maybe just the Sean Murphy stuff, maybe just the main story is going to get deluxe edition. Well, Batman Beyond the White Knight came out, standard hardcover, then a paperback. Then they announced a deluxe edition, then canceled the deluxe edition, and it hasn't resurfaced. And I'm not exactly sure why they did that, but they went ahead and did that. This also contained the Red Hood 2-issue series. It's one of the best Red Hood comics of recent years. Then there was the Generation Joker, which is another White Knight Presents, so it's another spin-off like the Harley Quinn, focusing on some more characters. Once again, hardcover, paperback. And then, oddly enough, right after they canceled the Beyond the White Knight Deluxe Edition, they announced a deluxe edition, which was Batman White Knight Presents Harley Quinn and Generation Joker, which is these two series in deluxe edition. So now, Beyond the White Knight doesn't exist in deluxe edition. Why is that? I have no idea. Also because, releasing these two as a separate kind of volume makes sense, but if you don't read Beyond the White Knight, Generation Joker doesn't make much sense. And so if you're waiting for deluxe edition, you've got a chapter missing. It would have made more sense, I think, to do the main trilogy, and then add in the White Knight Presents after that. So very odd for me. Again, it doesn't affect me too much because here I am. I got the standard hardcovers where all of them have different spine designs, which I think is amusing. But yeah, it's kind of strange that they did not really do the deluxe editions quite right in order. There's still a chance they'll do Beyond the White Knight. But let me know in the comments if you got any other examples of something like that, because yeah, the standard format, you got a consistent hardcover paperback set, but deluxe edition's missing a whole series. All right, let's go to where this whole video started, which is the Milestone Returns line. For context, Milestone Comics was a company in the 90s which DC published their comics, and it featured characters like Static and Icon and Rocket and Hardware. And they basically were a startup company that really made their splash, focusing on characters of color and underrepresented minorities in comic books. And they were really great. Trailblazers for a lot of reasons. And so after many years, the company folded. It folded into DC. DC had the character rights for a while. Milestone was reborn as its own company, once again taking the ownership of the characters, but still publishing through DC. And they brought the Milestone characters back and updated with Milestone Returns. So we had gotten Static Season 1, which was a big splash. That was one of the first series. And Static Season 1 did get this nice hardcover edition. And it's actually really nice because there's some parts that are matte, some parts that are glossy. Very fancy, very, very cool. So we got our hardcover, then we got our paperback. Static Season 1 even has a compact edition. Icon and Rocket Season 1 followed the same thing, glossy in some spots, matte in other spots, which is really nice. And these look really, really cool on a shelf because they have the Milestone logo of the comic, and the DC logo. Very nice and consistent. Same story goes for Hardware Season 1 as well. Again, partial matte, partial glossy. Looks really, really nice. The cool part, too, is these all contain the Milestone Returns 0 issue that kicked off the whole series so that we have full context in each book. But that was kind of wave 1, and they were very nice hardcovers, as well as the paperbacks. Going into wave 2 of Milestone Returns, we had Blood Syndicate Season 1, which was matte here, glossy here, fully contains. It even has a one-shot story from the Milestone 30th Anniversary one-shot that was an epilogue story. They threw that in the back, which was really, really nice. So that added to it. The next series kind of took a little bit of a deviation in format, which is Duo. Now, Duo took place outside Dakota City, but it was still in the Milestone universe, so they gave it this Earth M banner. It kind of didn't go anywhere. I thought they were going to do something with it. But Duo was an update on the character Zombie from the original Milestone. So he has a bit of a different spine design because of that. And that makes sense because, it's supposed to be outside of Dakota City, but still in the Milestone universe. So it's got a similar format, but it is different. That, makes total sense to me why that one is a little different. Then going into Wave 3, We had Static Shadows of Dakota, which was our kind of Static Season 2, if you would. And this is a full glossy. This was still the matte and glossy mix. This is just full glossy, so a little bit of a downgrade, but publishing costs, have gone up. This is staying at the same price, but that also contains the Static Anansi team-up, which is great. And then there was Icon versus Hardware, because they decided to combine the two together. And this was also flat glossy, but still hardcover, and contained the Icon versus Hardware series. So that was kind of where we're at for a bit. There was a little bit of a pause, and then the next series after this was Milestone Universe Shadow Cabinet, which featured all the characters that we had seen prior, plus the Shadow Cabinet of the new Milestone Universe. And this collection contains the entire 4-issue series, plus the entire Milestone 30th Anniversary Special, which pretty much means that between all of these, you have collected everything from the Milestone Returns era except for Milestones in History and New Talent Showcase Milestones, which is the only two things that weren't included. Would have been nice to just beef this up at that point, because for all intents and purposes, at this point, this is the final of the Milestone Returns series, and I haven't addressed the elephant in the room. Yeah, they only released it in paperback. So I could understand if maybe sales had fallen off for the Milestone Return stuff, kind of why a little bit of it is on hold. But really, we couldn't get the last one. Like, if this is the last one, we couldn't get the last one in a hardcover to match all the others. Really? Like, it's already a niche audience. Like, feed them well. Because, yeah, this just kind of bugs me, because when it's some other series, and there's some other examples, I know, like the current Superman run, they released the first volume in hardcover, but none of the rest. But, like, when it's the last one, like, everything else had gotten hardcover except this. That just sucks. I wouldn't even be mad about the Change DC logo. I just would have liked a hardcover to go alongside the rest of them. And so for whatever reason that happened, I don't know. But as a collector and a fan, that pretty much bums me out. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, because I had a few examples, and I'm sure there's more that we could talk about even in the future. But this is still a great series. I really enjoyed the Milestone Returns era. But, if it is at an end and this is the last one, dang, why couldn't that have just been a hardcover? So at the end of the day, is this anything earth-shattering and terrible? No. I mean, it is annoying because, consistent format is nice as a collector. But it is nice at least these comics got collected, because there's been some issues with some other books not quite getting collected and stuff. And it's a bummer, because it's like, well, where is it going to be in the collections? So at least they are in existence, but it would have been nice to have some consistency. If you enjoyed this video, though, hit the like button and subscribe to the notification bell if you haven't already. Leave any comments. Give me your examples. What are your pet peeves in inconsistent format options? Really would like to hear that. Also, be sure to check out our Discord server if you want to continue the conversation. You can also join as a channel member and get perks like early access to videos. So let's give some special shout outs to our channel members. Special shout out to all of our channel members, including Captain Tier, Spin-54, Masterbed95, Forever1000, Super Shaddix Boom, Mr. Smelly Potato, James Abel, Jamie's World, Veloquince, Rabbitman, Daniel Evans, Zizu426, Common Pikachu, John Troutman, Spidey Brian, Fernando Perea, Smotlock, Lord Tatman, Henry G, Caro, Gang1, Sebastian Travez. Thank you all for your support, both viewers and members alike. If you want to find me on social media outside of our Discord server, I'm on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Soundout12. You can also find my awesome graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643. And you can find Hero Club at hero-club.com for comic reviews and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.